answering your questions here today. Hey friend, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're a new friend here, I'm Dr. Alyssa Olenek, PhD in exercise physiology and the great question answerer. I have your questions here that I'm answering here today and breaking it down. And if you enjoyed this style of video, let me know below if you like this and/or ask me a question that you want me to answer in another video, and I'll catch you on the next one. So let's dive in. So the first question is, what would your exercise split look like if you returned to the gym after being gone for a while? So I actually have a video on this that I can link here for you all. And basically, I don't change my split or my setup of my workout if I miss a week from vacation or a little bit of time off. I jump into my same or normal routine, but I usually ease into it with less. Now, this is assuming that you haven't taken a super significant time off, but that video does break down how to approach this based off how long you've taken off the gym. But what I do is I jump back into, say, my normal lifting routine, and instead of doing everything at like a 7 or 8 out of 10 effort, I do it at like a 5 or 6 out of 10 effort. So I kind of treat it like a deload week or a reverse taper after a running race, or you take a week off to taper or recover before a big race or event. And I kind of treat it like that. I'm doing all the same things. I'm just doing it at a lower weight and a lower intensity and a lower effort, or maybe I'll do 2 sets instead of 3. So my body can readapt to that volume without being super sore and blowing me up. Similarly, if you missed a week, if you miss like 1 week of running, you can probably jump back into your normal running routine and be fine. But if you're missing multiple weeks, maybe easing back in slowly to half what your volume was, 75%, 100%, same on and so forth, just depending on how long it's been since you've been off, and or keeping similar frequency, just pulling back how much you're doing in those days. When doing intervals, should recovery be walked or jogged? So this would probably be referring to running intervals, I would assume. And the answer to this is it depends on the workout. There are some workouts where you are specifically doing really, really hard, intense, like VO2 max is what people might call them, intervals, where they're really short, all out, intense, whether it's a sprint, maybe 1, 2, 4, 800 meters, maybe up to a kilometer, where you are programming things where you're actually doing repeats that are made to be all out efforts for those repeats, and you're actually truly recovering in them between them. So the goal is to go 100% of what that effort is that's sustainable and repeatable across the whole workout there in that workout, and take a true rest and recovery between. Where other workouts are made for you to do hard intervals and jog between them, so you're running and taking an easy recovery and running that again. And or you're doing hard efforts or pickups or pushes in the middle of a run that's traditional. So you're alternating or oscillating between hard efforts and easy efforts. So a program should be telling you if you're walking or jogging or taking it easy in between or truly recovering. But an easier rule of thumb is if it's an all-out interval, something that is max effort but repeatable, you are probably taking a full break in it. And if it's something that's a pretty hard effort but not totally to the point that you're like totally winded and out of breath and super, super out of it after it, you could jog between those or have like pickups or intervals built in to your runs where you might do easy running, your hard effort, easy running. Those are probably the 2 easiest rules of thumbs, but really it just depends on the workout and the goal of the program. How often should I change the distance I run for my workouts? So again, this really depends on the goal and what you're trying to train for and run. So for example, I don't run the same distance every single day of the week that I run. I have 2 moderate distance runs each week, 1 longer run each week, a speed workout, and maybe a shorter, easier run built in there within the week. And they're all different mileage. Where if you have a specific race training goal, you're probably going to have some sort of oscillation like that across the week as well. Or if you are just running for fun or running because you want to, it really doesn't matter unless you're trying to run a certain distance or run a certain thing. So it's okay if you run 5 miles 3 days a week and that's what you do. It's also okay if your runs are 3 miles, 5 miles, and 8 miles, if that's what it works for your training and program, what it is. It's not so much the distance that matters more than the distance related to the goal or the volume that you're trying to achieve each week in your training program. What are your thoughts on wearing watches like Whoop to track recovery? I'm wearing a Whoop white right now, so I guess I'm for it. I have the new Whoop 5.0, the more fancy one, whatever the higher tier one is. I can't remember what that one is called. And so far I really like it. I had the Whoop 4.0 before this, and I've worn Whoop on and off for a few years. I wore it for a while, I stopped wearing it, and I started wearing it again. And I like my Whoop, but I think I like my Whoop because I use it as a tool And I don't live or die by it, but I use it to indirectly inform myself about my metrics and what I'm doing as someone who's pretty dialed in with my sleep and my nutrition and mostly tries to be with my stress management. For me, sometimes it really does help me with managing my training and my recovery and picking up trends of things that might be positively or negatively affecting my recovery. But I don't just look at my recovery scores. I look at my HRV trends, but I also look at my resting heart rate. And if my resting heart rate is trending higher and my HRV is lower, I assume it's some sort of systemic fatigue and I need to pull back, adjust, or recover somewhere. If my HRV is lower and my resting heart rate isn't really altered or it's still low, it might be stress or nutrition that's driving that. I just want to address that in my day-to-day, or maybe a poor night's sleep. And or I don't live and die by it, but I use it to inform and mostly look at trends over time or patterns to inform the choices that I'm making, which I think can be really helpful. I find that the way I feel 80 to 90% of the time mimics how my Whoop thinks I feel. But there's of course days that I feel totally fine and my recovery score is super low, or my recovery score says, oh, you should be amazing to take on a ton of load today. And I'm like, I could barely even fathom doing that in my training. And usually I check in with myself and ask myself why those things might be happening. Or sometimes I just do my training as is and move on with my life and adjust as needed. I don't think we need to live and die by them, but I think we can look at patterns and have them inform what we're doing. Vibration plates for bone density and muscle growth, fact or fiction? So I'm gonna be honest, I haven't looked into the literature on vibration plates since I did my undergrad research paper on vibration plates when I worked at a chiropractor office that used them in the office. So I haven't been refreshed on this literature in a few years, but I do have a video on building bone density, especially for women and menopausal and or women in general across the lifespan, but that's where a lot of this misinformation comes from. So that breaks down for you exactly what you need to do. There's a lot of gimmicks out there for building bone density and our muscle in this age group. And the reality is your bone responds to constant repeated loading or stretching or pulling of it to signal it to build more bone density, which is building more muscle cells and releasing those signals to the body or to the bones themselves, osteoclast and osteoblast, the words I'm trying to say but avoid saying, and therefore I'm sounding silly. So you need that repeated effort of jumping or skipping or hopping or weighted, loaded, bearing exercise to stimulate that bone growth. Vibration plates are kind of oscillating you, and they might be a gentle way to maybe expose that stimulus early on, or for people who are maybe really down the track of having osteoporosis. Again, I haven't looked at the literature in a while, but my hunch is that it's probably not as sexy of data as people are promising it to be, much like the weighted vest data is really not that sexy and promising as much as people are promising it to you to be. And I would not use a vibration plate for muscle building. You need to load your muscle. You need to lift at a moderate to heavy load and or higher heart intensity. Those are going to be the things that are going to drive those things forward and are way more worth your time than these gimmicks. All right, guys, I have a lot of questions about injuries. That's what I'm trying to go through here about injuries and aches versus pain and certain types of tendonitis and dysfunction and all this stuff. And I just want to preface this that if you are struggling with injuries or anything like that, I'm not a physical therapist, so I'm not going to touch that stuff, but you really should talk to a physical therapist if you're struggling with these things. That's what I really recommend. Unfortunately, I'm just not qualified to talk about injury, but I can talk about managing or adjusting program and training around it, or get you a good training program to help you reduce those injuries. If you're a beginner at both running and lifting, which should you start with? So really you could do either or both, but it's going to be hard to start two things at once potentially. Now I have my how to start hybrid training video that would be really helpful that does talk about beginner starting both and what to do. And I don't think it's impossible for you to start both at once. We have clients doing that all of the time in the LIST method. They do our foundations program with beginner runner program or foundations program with our beginner cardio program, but sometimes it can be a lot to add in two forms of training at once or, multiple days of training at once if you're coming from nothing. So I typically would recommend people honestly start with the lifting component for no other reason that the lifting component is something that's really important for health. You can get newbie gains really fast. It feels really good. It can be really exciting. And you're building that muscle strength and structure that can also help carry over and help support you in that running. With the caveat being that if running feels less mentally hard or easier for you to get out the door, more comfortable for you to do because you're not quite comfortable in the gym, it's totally okay to do that as well. But that would just be my off the cuff advice. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. You can do either one, but I would say maybe start with the lifting and build some of that basic strength, get that reward, get comfortable and confident in the gym. And then even if you just wait a few weeks, it will help to start one and then the other because you won't have as much soreness and fatigue when doing both at once. That might make it easier for you to sustain them both long term. Have you ever done the Barkley Ultra in Tennessee? Or do you want to? So there's this running joke in the ultra running community that this is like the most common regular person question that you will get if you run an ultra marathon. So this is a little cliche and I get asked this all of the time. So we're gonna put the answer here once and for all. I am not going to run the Barkley. I will probably never run the Barkley. If you don't know what the Barkley is, go ahead and look up. There's a Barkley marathon like docu-movie on Netflix, but go look up the video Where Dreams Go to Die by the Ginger Runner. I feel like that one captures it really well. Or the Paris, I forget her last name, but the woman who first ran Barkley and first won Barkley a few years back. Amazing, amazing. There's a ton of documentaries on it, but it's one really hard to get into. Laz, the guy who runs it, is this crazy old dude who starts the race by blowing a conch shell and lighting a cigarette, and you have to bring a license plate to get into the race, and he makes you pay it's $1, and you have to send some weird encrypt application type thing to get in the race, and there's you have to secretly figure out how to actually apply to enter the race. It's this whole thing in the ultra running community. It's really hard, and it also requires land nav and no GPS, skills that I do not have. And you have to be an incredibly, incredibly good fit runner to both meet the mileage demands of those loops in time with seeking out the book chapters that you have to do and navigating and also finishing the race. So I don't think I'll be getting into the Barkley anytime soon or running it, but it is really impressive and crazy. And I of course tune into it every single year. How to use different forms of cardio like biking with my usual hybrid training and lifting. So if you're gonna cross train with biking or the elliptical or other forms of non-running cardio, I encourage you to do it on a day that you aren't running, where you add it in maybe on top of a lift or on an extra day that you're not running. So say you're running 4 days a week, that 5th day is a cardio day that isn't running. We actually do this in the LIST method programs. You have 3 or 4 days a week or 4 or 5 days a week of running where the extra day is optional and it can be done running or biking or elliptical or incline walking or stair stepping or whatever it is on a cross training day to get that in. So you can either do it on a day that you are not running on its own as an extra day to get in more endurance training volume. You could also potentially play with doing it as a double day with your run. Maybe you run in the morning and then cycle in the evening to get a double stimulus. That is probably an approach that you don't need unless you're doing such a high training volume that you need that. I mean, a lot of elite endurance athletes will do 2 training sessions a day. Most people I would think watching this aren't people who need that approach of training, or you can use it on lifting days when you're not running. So really just fit it in around your runs and use it as a way to either get an extra zone 2, or if you're somebody who can't tolerate a lot of intensity on the bike, but you want more intensity in your training or you need more intensity in your training, or you're not quite ready for speed work, it can be a great way to also get in some higher hard intensity intervals or more of a high hard training stimulus in a way that is a load weight bearing demanding way. So you can add that into your training before you're ready to, or if you're injured or coming back from training. So you can use it for both of those approaches. But lots of good questions here. Let me know if you have more questions below. We'll answer them on a future video. But otherwise, a lot of these guys are coming in future videos or will have been in recent videos posted. So make sure you go back to my channel, hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and check that out because I answer so many of these questions about running and lifting and hybrid training and nutrition in my content in a little bit more long form that kind of gives you those nitty-gritty details you're looking for to actually know what to do and how to apply it. But otherwise, thank you for being here, and I'll catch you on the next one.